Welcome to the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast, bringing you the country's top podcast on the subject of internet marketing. I'm your host, Glenn Thayer, along with the CEO of Intuitive Websites, Thomas Young, and web marketing guru, Dennis McCarthy. Welcome back to the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. I'm Glenn Thayer. Dennis McCarthy is out this week, so filling in for him is Ray Cameron. Of course, we have our old standby, the CEO of Intuitive Websites, Tom Young, with us. We're talking about ROI this week. Your website is an investment, but no one really knows what it costs. I know there's companies, there's startups that come out and they go, I don't really know what it costs. So, Tom, what the heck should a website cost?
Well, it's interesting because websites are one of the few things that can cost $0, just time, because you can have an intern or a student build your site. Or, we've seen websites, especially in the heyday of the web, that were five figures for a website. And we're not talking about a million pages here. We're talking about a few pages. So website pricing's all over the board. We think, though, and based on what we've done and based on what we charge and how we budget for our time to get things done, websites on the low end should be around $5,000 to build and get it structured properly. That includes content and everything. That's on the low end. And on the high end, you're probably looking at $20,000 to $25,000 for more complex sites with e-commerce and that sort of thing. That is probably going to cover 90% of websites that are out there for most small and medium-sized businesses. But you've got to keep in mind, building the site's just step one. The next step is that you've got to market and maintain the website. And we think that a minimum of $500 to $1,000 a month should be budgeted for that. And you could get into several $1,000s a month depending on how you set up AdWords and what you do to market your website. If you're doing your website for less than these dollar amounts, then someone's either sacrificing their time and working for free, or you're going to run into some problems because you're just not going to get the kind of service you need for the most part. I mean, there might be exceptions to that, but I think in most cases that'll probably be what you see. But yeah, websites are investments. Every dollar that you spend on your site should be tracked. And if you spend, the budgets that we say, let's say take a year of spending these budgets, and you're into the website, say $30,000 for the year. Well, for that year, you should see several times that expenditure come back to you in various forms of conversions.
Now, something else that I want to touch on before that, because we have several podcasts that you guys can go back and listen to and get more information on this. But the biggest thing that you didn't mention was the fact to do the homework in advance. That it's not just throw $5,000 to $20,000 out to get your website out, and then you're going to spend $500 to $1,000 to maintain it. It's actually getting in there and doing your marketing plan.
Yes, absolutely.
Working with your marketing department, or if you have an outsource, if you're going to outsource this and say, you know what, we're not too web savvy, let's outsource it to somebody who knows exactly what they're doing, gets our objectives and what we're trying to do, and puts us in the right plan.
So important. I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm assuming that you have already done the planning part. You have a site map for the site and a strategy. And that can be done internally if you know how to do it. If you don't, if you were to hire us to do that or hire another firm, you should be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 range to help with that initial planning. But the key thing, I think, is that you should see a significant return for your money if you do this right, because of the cost effectiveness of the web. And what really is the most important thing is how you define that return, what your expectations are on your return. And you do that in your marketing plan, as you were saying.
Well, there's a couple different ways to obviously get a return on your website. And I think most people think of websites as, why do you have your website? Very few people say, especially now, we talked about this in the last podcast, we have a web presence. People don't care about web presence. We're using the web to make money. Conversions. Right. We want to make sales, or we want to generate leads. I mean, those are really the two reasons to have business on the web. So, I mean, what types of other strategies should people be looking at to really establish or boost up their ROI?
Well, keep in mind that your conversion strategy defines your return. All right, so some websites the conversion strategy is we need online sales. We need e-commerce online sales. That's pretty straightforward. But for most businesses, especially service-based businesses, your return is more intangible than that. But it doesn't mean you can't measure it. So your conversion strategy could be as simple as leads or sales, but it could also be things like email subscribers. It could be impressions. It could be visitors. It could be using it as part of your sales process. Like, for example, if you're a home builder, we work with a lot of home builders. Someone may come into a model home, never seen your website, really like their interaction with the salesperson, and be thinking to themselves, I might want to pursue them to build my home. Then they go to your website. The website could make or break the deal. That is another example of a conversion strategy. If they go to your website, they come back and say, I saw your website, let's move forward. The website is doing its job, and you can attach ROI to it. If they go to your website and you never hear from them again, then it's also defining your return. And then also, refers that people have been referred to your site, branding, all of those are strategies. How you pair up against competitors is also strategies and can be measured. And also keep in mind, which is something we see every day, is how a small change to a website can impact so much the ROI, the return on investment.
What would be a good example of that?
Oh, well, the most straightforward example would be websites that don't have phone numbers on them, which they still exist. And, so if you don't have your phone number, someone wants to contact you by phone and they can't find it and they leave, you just lost your potential ROI.
How much, I was having this conversation with somebody else yesterday, and they were asking, how important is it to have an email address on every page? Because clearly having a phone number on every page, that's a must. You need to be able to make it easy for somebody to pick up the phone and do business with you. It's like, I want to give you money. Okay, well, you don't hide. No, you can't give me money.
Yeah, I tell clients, don't stand in the way of people who want to hire you and give you money.
But the other thing came up is as far as email's concerned, because there's two different things. You have the info email address. It's info@intuitivewebsites.com. It's like, do you really think, from a customer's mind, do you really think somebody's behind there answering it? There's definitely not somebody named info that's hanging out waiting for an email. But it's almost like the black hole. But you have the two options. You can put an email address in there, which people didn't worry about spam, or you have the canned contact us form.
The contact us form, right.
What is the best way? I mean, what's the best way to handle that as far as somebody who's setting up their website?
Statistically speaking, we have several websites that have put out their email addresses, and there's two things we've found. One is they do get a lot of spam, and then we go through the process of trying to guard from that. We have ways of doing that, so we can address that issue. But we also track, and this is another one of those return on investment things that we want to measure how people measure what people are doing from the website. And so we've measured and put tags in where we can measure the clicks on an email, how many people actually email. On the sites that we're watching on, we're finding that not many people are actually using the emails, and they prefer to use the forms. And I think it's just become such an expectation that they know if they fill out a form, or at least they hope if they fill out a form, that somebody's going to get back to them soon. And that's one of those places where you can set yourself apart, is establish a guideline for how you respond to those. That if somebody fills out a form, that your goal is to respond to that in an hour, and show that you're different than other companies who may never return.
But it's also it would also, the other responsibility on that person, if they say we're going to get back to you within an hour, they better have somebody on staff that can get back within an hour.
Absolutely. And think of it this way, as far as measuring ROI and how a small change can impact that. You might have a business that your average order is $20,000 or $30,000, and you might have a clientele that would like to use forms, and you don't have forms on your site. Well, let's say over the course of a year, you spend $100,000 on your website, you got a great site, put a lot of money into it. There's no form on your site. You add a form. And all of a sudden, your sales team's getting 2 or 3 inquiries a month now because that form is there. And let's say you convert a third of those. So you get 1 sale a month, and your average sale is $20,000. That's over $200,000 a year in revenue that was generated by your website.
With
just from forms,
simple change.
With the simple change of having a form. And there's other examples of that too. But all of this, that's why the small changes drive ROI.
Now, we mentioned in the last, we touched in the last podcast as far as website statistics. And Ray, maybe you can give us some insights, because I know we're talking about maybe mainly Google Analytics and really looking at the analytics of the website, what people are doing once they arrive at your website. How important are stats as far as evaluating ROI?
Great question, and they're really important. I think in some cases you can spend as much money on a website that could work for you for a year or two or more as you're spending on some of the traditional marketing methods. And if you're going to make that investment, you need to be able to tell what's coming back on it. Google Analytics and our various other analytics programs, we can tell you exactly not only that your website is working, but we can tell you what exact parts of your website are working. So we can tell you if your Google AdWords is generating a higher conversion rate than Yahoo organic, or if your referral traffic is a better converting traffic than your direct traffic. So we can measure that, and we have ways to influence each of those sources of traffic. But if we don't know which one's working and which one's not, then we don't know what to do. So we've got to have the analytics set up, because that drives what we do. That's the marketing piece of your website. It's not enough anymore just to have a website. You've got to ask your website for information about how it's performing, and it'll tell you if you have the tools set up. And then you can tell your website how to change so that customers can become clients, or visitors can become clients.
Well, I know I'm sure we're going to talk about this in future podcasts. I ran across something interesting on Twitter. There's a Twitter, what would you call it, interface called Hootsuite. And it will actually allow you, when you embed URLs into Twitter, when people click on them, you actually get all the analytics on the click-throughs. And so, and that'll be, later, obviously, when we talk more about social marketing and social networking online. That's just another way to do it. But you can now analyze whatever posts that you put on Twitter and do it that way. So it's another way to make it. Now, we're looking at ROI, and we know it varies by market.
Absolutely.
Obviously, there's different types of visitors, different types of conversions. People go to Nike for different reasons. Like I see, Tom, you're wearing a Nike shirt. They'll go to Nike.com. They might be interested in a new tennis shoe. Mm-hmm. However, you might have a different sort of customer coming looking at investor relations, that they may look at putting some money into stock, buying Nike stock.
Yeah, we just recently did a newsletter on the different types or why people visit websites, and kind of gives an idea of the different types of people that visit sites. And you've got to understand that your ROI is going to vary by market. There's a lot of people going to hit your website that obviously are just not qualified. Even though they might find your information useful and get information from the site, you've got to be able to take those out. And one of the ways you can do that is by looking at your bounce rate. People that bounce immediately from your site, they're not going to impact ROI, and they're probably not in your target market. But you've also got to segment it further than that and look at folks that are doing research, folks that are possibly going to be referring you to others, people that are definitely a qualified customer, and you can see that by the kind of pages and things they look at. You could even look at competitors and get a sense of, if competitors are looking at your site. But the ROI varies by the kind of traffic that you get. If you look at your stats, and you work with the stats, and you work with your pages and make the site adaptable to that, you'll slowly lower your bounce rate and get the right type of person in there, so you get a stronger ROI from what you're spending to drive traffic and market the site.
Is there a specific strategy for that?
As far as understanding
as far as the different conversions, is there a certain strategy to put in place?
Yeah, and it's really broken down into two categories. It's e-commerce sites, or it's service related sites, and there's some gray area in between there. But for e-commerce site, obviously we want to see we're looking at the funnel, the process of once they select a product, how they move through to the purchase. And for an e-commerce site, it's all about the purchase. That's the conversion point. A service site, a service-oriented website, we're really focused on getting those people to contact the company. And so one of the things that we see in the websites that are performing really well, that are service-oriented, are the visits to the Contact Us page. And we'd like to see the Contact Us page be in that top top 5 really of the visits on the website.
Absolutely, because people can contact you from different methods once they hit the Contact Us page. Yeah, and I think, too, that it's important for our listeners to understand the idea of a conversion formula or funnel. And you should be doing this on your website, which is basically looking at of all the visitors that come in, what is the bounce rate? Of the visitors that stay, how many of those convert? And how do they convert based on the traffic source, and what do they do on the various pages? Now, things that can impact this are things like your offer, the usability of your website, how much traffic you're driving in, and that sort of thing. But you need to set up a conversion formula. And just to give you an idea, we think that you should have a conversion of 1% to 2% of qualified traffic, either a sale or a direct contact. And if people visit your Contact Us page, you should have a much higher conversion than that. 20 to 30, maybe even as high as 50% of people that visit the Contact Us page should get in touch with you. The offer plays a big part in that. And we focus on offers that help. What is it you can do to help them do their job better, help them with their life in some way? If you can do that, that has a higher conversion.
Now, we talked about all these stats. Once all these numbers are compiled and you get a monthly stats on what's going on with Google Analytics, what's going on with your page, who's responsible for that?
That's a really important point, and we keep honing in on that on these podcasts, is that you've got to train people to be in tune with these things. Someone has to watch the stats and know what they're doing. Begin with an outsourced company and then move on to something you can do internally. One of the things we found that really helps is if you have a regular meeting, either weekly or monthly meeting. The meetings build accountability, and they force people to get training and come to the meetings prepared. If you do those things, I think it goes a long way to understanding how you get website ROI.
Well, we have, as all of our listeners know, if this is your first time, well, you get to know that we end each of the podcasts with an action item plan. So, Tom and Ray, what are the action items for the listener?
Well, I think right off the bat, you've got to set strategic conversions and offers. That's got to be a big part of what you do on your website. If you don't have Google Analytics set up, you're really not a serious web marketer. You need to get Google Analytics set up and measure conversions and goals. Build accountability in your staff. Assign people to be responsible for web marketing. Use external consultants to help with training and to understand this process. And set up regular meetings. And in those meetings, discuss conversion goals, run numbers, and get an idea of what you expect your return to be. I really feel strongly that in web marketing, as in any kind of sales and marketing, if you don't set a goal and try to work toward that goal, you'll never reach it. You know what I'm saying? So you have to do that in these meetings. Set a goal for how much traffic you want to see. Set a goal for how many conversions you want to see, your conversion rate, and that sort of thing. And then work hard to make it happen. And use the vast amount of resources we have in Intuitive Websites to help you.
And folks, there's a wealth of information. If you go to intuitivewebsites.com or you go to intuitiveblog.com, there's so many resources there. If you have any questions on specifics on Google Analytics or any of that, we've got past podcasts that talk all about that. And if you got more questions, just give us a call. That's easy. Shoot us an email, give us a call, and we can help you out. Thanks for tuning in to the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. And I'm here with Tom Young and Ray Cameron. Thanks, guys, for being here. And we'll talk with you in the next podcast.
This has been an Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. For more information and to see all the available podcasts and much more, visit intuitiveblog.com.